The very air in Eldoria hummed with secrets, but none so profound or as beautifully sung as those carried by the starlight. For countless ages, the people of this land had lived beneath a sky that was not merely dark, but a vibrant tapestry of swirling nebulae, diamond-bright constellations, and rivers of shimmering cosmic dust. It was said that the stars themselves were the dreams of the sleeping gods, and their gentle light, known as astral essence, flowed into Eldoria, nurturing its forests, illuminating its hidden caves, and inspiring the quiet magic that permeated every leaf and stone. In a valley cradled by ancient, slumbering mountains, lay the village of Starfall Glade. It was a place of moss-roofed cottages and winding paths, where luminous moss clung to ancient stones and the air always carried the scent of night-blooming jasmine. Here lived a young girl named Elara, whose heart beat in rhythm with the celestial dance above. Elara was not like the other children of Starfall Glade, who chased fireflies in the twilight or listened to the tales of the forest spirits. While she loved those things too, her truest joy was found after the sun dipped below the mountains, painting the sky in hues of amethyst and rose. Each night, she would climb to the small, overgrown observatory her grandfather had built, a crumbling stone tower overlooking the village. It was here, perched on a worn wooden stool, her small hands resting on the cool, smooth surface of an ancient star chart, that Elara felt most herself. She wasn't a star-seer, those wise elders who could interpret celestial omens, nor a lumina keeper, who coaxed the astral essence into glowing crystals to light their homes. Elara simply felt the stars. She knew the names of the constellations not just from books, but from the distinct tingle each one sent through her fingertips, a unique whisper on the wind. Lyra the harp sang of music and solace. Orion the hunter pulsed with a steady brave beat, and Cassiopeia the queen shimmered with regal, distant grace. Every morning, Elara would rise with the first blush of dawn, her dreams often imbued with the echoes of the night sky, sometimes a fleeting glimpse of a distant nebula, other times the silent song of a comet streaking across her inner vision. She spent her days helping her grandmother tend the moonpetal garden, plants that unfurled their luminous petals only under the direct gaze of the twin moons, Elara and Lyra, which orbited Eldoria. Her grandmother, a quiet woman with eyes the color of twilight, often watched Elara with a knowing smile, sensing the deep connection her granddaughter shared with the cosmos. One evening, as the first stars began to prickle through the deepening indigo, Elara made her usual ascent to the observatory. She carried a small flask of warm spiced milk and a piece of sweet lavender bread, her nightly ritual. The air was still and cool, carrying the familiar scent of pine and damp earth. But as she pushed open the creaking wooden door of the observatory, a subtle shiver ran down her spine. The sky, usually a riot of glittering points and milky rivers, seemed different. She stared, her brow furrowed in concentration. The familiar diamond dust shimmer of the cosmic river, usually a vibrant streak across the heavens, appeared muted, as if a thin veil of mist had settled over it. The stars themselves, while still numerous, lacked their usual crisp brilliance. They seemed softer, their edges blurred, like gems that had lost a fraction of their polish. Elara dismissed it at first. Perhaps she was tired, or the night air was playing tricks on her eyes. She settled onto her stool, peering through the small, polished crystal lens that served as the observatory's telescope. She focused it on the Lyra constellation, her favorite. Usually Vega, its brightest star, pulsed with a gentle, inviting light. Tonight, however, Vega seemed to flicker, a hesitant heartbeat in the vast expanse. The other stars of Lyra were faint, their ethereal harmony diminished. A knot of unease tightened in Elara's stomach. She spent hours that night, moving from constellation to constellation, each one confirming her growing apprehension. The vibrant greens of the nebula of whispers were faded to a pale jade. The fiery reds of the dragon's breath cluster were now a dull ember glow. The astral essence, the very lifeblood of Eldoria's magic, felt weaker, thinner, like a distant echo instead of a clear song. For the next few nights, the dimming continued, subtly but undeniably. The luminous moss in Starfall Glade glowed with less intensity. The moon petals in her grandmother's garden were slower to unfurl, their light less potent. A quiet anxiety began to settle over the village, unspoken but felt. The children's laughter seemed a little softer, the adults' conversations a little more hushed. Elara knew she couldn't keep this to herself any longer. She needed to speak to someone who understood the language of the stars far better than she did. She needed to speak to Master Lyra. Master Lyra lived in a dwelling carved into the base of the tallest mountain, Mount Cinder. It was a place of quiet contemplation, filled with ancient scrolls, glowing crystals, and the constant soft murmur of water trickling from hidden springs. Lyra herself was a woman of immense age, her face a roadmap of gentle wrinkles, her eyes the color of a stormy sky, but always twinkling with profound wisdom. She was the village's star-seer, the keeper of ancient knowledge, and the one who often shared tales of the cosmos with a rapt young Elara. The next morning, Elara left her home before the sun had fully risen, a small satchel slung over her shoulder. The path to Master Lyra's dwelling wound through ancient groves of whispering willows, whose leaves rustled with unheard stories. The journey usually filled Elara with wonder, but today, a sense of urgency propelled her forward. When she arrived, the air around Master Lyra's dwelling felt cooler, more charged. A faint, silvery mist clung to the entrance. Elara took a deep breath and knocked softly on the gnarled wooden door. "Enter, little starling," a voice like the soft rustle of autumn leaves called from within. Elara pushed the door open to reveal a circular chamber, dimly lit by the soft glow of half-charged lumina crystals. Scrolls were stacked high on shelves, carved into the rock walls, and a faint, sweet scent of dried herbs and old parchment filled the air. Master Lyra sat cross-legged on a woven mat, a large, intricately carved wooden orb resting in her lap. The orb, known as the celestial compass, was usually aglow, with a miniature depiction of the night sky, each star a tiny, vibrant spark. Today, it too seemed muted, its constellations faint, its cosmic rivers barely visible. "Grandmother Lyra," Elara began, her voice a little breathless, I've come about the stars." Lyra's eyes, deep and knowing, met Elara's. "I know, child. The night sky weeps, does it not?" Elara nodded, relief washing over her that her fears were not unfounded. "It's fading. The astral essence, it feels so thin. The moon petals barely glow, and the cosmic river looks like a pale ghost." Master Lyra sighed, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of ages. She gently stroked the dim celestial compass. "It has been many centuries since the sky has fallen so quiet. The threads of light, the very starlight that weaves through our land, are fraying. The astral essence is not flowing as it should." "But why?" Elara asked, her heart aflutter with concern. "Has a shadow fallen over a distant sun? Or have the dream gods forgotten to sing their lullabies?" Lyra offered a small, sad smile. "Neither, my dear. The cause is often closer than we imagine. The flow of astral essence is not just a gift from the cosmos, it is a delicate balance, sustained by the harmony of Eldoria itself. And when that harmony falters, so too does the light." She paused, her gaze drifting to a wall covered in ancient, faded tapestries depicting celestial events and legendary heroes. "There is an old tale, a prophecy whispered through generations of star-seers, of a time when the stars would dim and the world would grow cold. To prevent this, a great act of magic was required. Bide Starlight Serenade." Elara's eyes widened. "The Starlight Serenade? What is it?" "It is not merely a song, little starling," Lyra explained, her voice gaining a resonant quality. "It is a weaving of light, of sound, of pure intention. It is a symphony played not just with instruments, but with the very threads of the cosmos. It is said that when sung with a true heart and a clear spirit, the serenade can rekindle the star threads, drawing the astral essence back into full flow, renewing the harmony between Eldoria and the heavens." "Has it been sung before?" Elara asked, leaning forward, utterly captivated. "Indeed," Lyra affirmed. "The last time was over 1,000 years ago, during the Great Dimming. The legend tells of a lumina weaver, a young woman much like yourself, who journeyed to the highest peaks, gathered fragments of the serenade, and performed it under the brightest comet. Her courage saved our world." A shiver of awe and trepidation ran through Elara. "But, if it's so important, why isn't it sung regularly? Why has the knowledge been lost?" "The serenade is powerful, Elara, and deeply tied to the heart of Eldoria. It requires a specific alignment, a particular strength of spirit, and a profound understanding of the star threads. After the Great Dimming, The knowledge was fragmented, scattered into riddles and hidden in forgotten places, so that it might only be rediscovered by one truly destined to find it, one whose heart resonated with the stars' own song. It was believed that only in a time of true need. Lyra's gaze settled on Elara, warm and unwavering. Elara felt a blush creep up her neck. But I'm just Elara. I just like watching the stars. I'm not a Lumina Weaver or a Starseer. No, you are not a Starseer, not yet, Lyra said gently. But you feel the stars, Elara. You hear their whispers when others only see pinpricks of light. You have a deep connection, a nascent talent that hums with the astral essence. And lately, child, I have felt a growing resonance within you, a quiet but persistent hum that aligns with the very essence of the serenade. Lyra reached into a small pouch hanging from her belt and pulled out a small, intricately carved wooden box. Its surface was smooth and dark, inlaid with tiny pieces of iridescent shell that formed the shape of a swirling galaxy. She opened it, revealing a single, delicate item nestled within, a pendant on a thin silver chain. The pendant was a teardrop-shaped piece of polished obsidian, but within its depths, tiny flecks of silver seemed to swirl like captured starlight. This, Lyra explained, holding it out, is the star key. It belonged to the Lumina Weaver of old. It does not open a lock, but rather it is said to resonate with fragments of the serenade, guiding its wearer to their hidden locations. It will not tell you the answers directly, but it will hum when you are near a piece of the lost knowledge. Elara took the pendant, its cool surface warming instantly against her palm. She felt a faint thrumming, a gentle vibration that seemed to echo in her own chest. You must go, Elara, Lyra continued, her voice soft but firm. You must seek the lost verses of the Starlight Serenade. The first fragment, I believe, lies in the sunken city of Eridor, deep within the whispering marshes. It is a dangerous journey, child, full of mists and ancient spirits, but the stars grow dimmer with each passing night. We have little time. Elara looked from the glowing pendant to Master Lyra's earnest face, then through the small window of the dwelling to the still muted sky. A wave of fear washed over her, chilling her to the bone. She, a quiet girl who only watched the stars, was now tasked with saving them. The weight of it felt immense, crushing. But then, she thought of the fading glow of the moon petals, the muted beauty of the cosmic river, and the quiet anxiety in the eyes of her village folk. A spark of determination, fueled by love for her home and the wondrous sky above, ignited within her. I will go, she said, her voice small but resolute. I will find the serenade. Lyra smiled, a genuine hopeful smile that chased away some of the worry from her eyes. I knew you would, but you will not go alone. Before Elara could ask, a soft shimmer of light flickered in the corner of the room. From behind a stack of scrolls, a tiny creature emerged. It was a glimmerwing, a moth-like being no bigger than Elara's thumb, with iridescent wings that pulsed with soft, multicolored light. Its body was delicate, covered in what looked like fine, luminescent dust. It hovered in front of Elara, its tiny antennae twitching, and then gently bumped against her cheek, emitting a soft, musical chime. This is Pip, Lyra explained. He is one of the oldest Glimmerwings, and has guarded the star key for many years. He will be your companion, Elara. He cannot speak words, but he understands much, and his light will guide you through the darkest paths. Elara reached out a finger, and Pip delicately landed on it, his light pulsing warmly. She felt an instant connection, a sense of quiet reassurance. The whispering marshes are to the west, beyond the shadow wood, Lyra instructed, pointing to a faded map on the wall. Seek the ancient standing stones known as the Weaver's Fingers. They mark the entrance to the old marsh paths. Be wary of the mist wraiths, and listen for the song of the marsh reeds. They often carry ancient warnings. Elara spent the rest of the day in a flurry of quiet preparation. Her grandmother, sensing the shift in Elara's spirit but not asking for details, packed her a satchel with dried fruits, cheese, and a small flask of calming herbal tea. She pressed a soft, hand-knitted shawl into Elara's hands, woven with threads dyed from moon petal petals, which held a faint, comforting glow. As the sun began its descent once more, Elara stood at the edge of Starfall Glade, the star-key pendant cool against her skin, Pip hovering gently beside her shoulder. The sky above was already taking on that familiar, muted hue. The cosmic river was a pale ribbon, and Vega, the heart of Lyra, barely flickered. She turned for one last look at her village, at the moss-roofed cottages, and the ancient observatory tower, now a dim silhouette against the twilight. A surge of sadness, mingled with a fierce determination, swelled within her. "I will bring the light back," she whispered to the fading stars. With a deep breath, Elara stepped onto the winding path that led out of Starfall Glade and into the gathering gloom of the Shadowwood. Pip, a tiny beacon of shifting colors, danced ahead, his light illuminating the path just enough to guide her forward. The journey to Eridor, to the first fragment of the Starlight Serenade, had begun. The vast, unknown world stretched before her, holding both peril and the promise of ancient magic, and Elara, the quiet girl who felt the stars, walked towards it with a heart both full of fear and a burgeoning quiet hope. The Shadowwood was not merely dark. It was a place where darkness itself held a tangible weight, pressing in from all sides like a physical force. The air grew thick and still, heavy with the scent of damp earth, decaying leaves, and something else. A faint metallic tang that prickled Elara's nose and sent a shiver down her spine. The towering, gnarled trees, whose branches interlaced so tightly they formed a perpetual canopy, seemed to drink the very light from the sky, leaving only skeletal silhouettes against a bruised, twilight-hued gloom. Pip, usually a vibrant spark, now flickered with a more subdued glow, his colors shifting from hopeful azure to a more cautious emerald, then a deep, contemplative indigo. He zipped back and forth, a tiny living lantern, doing his best to pierce the encroaching shadows, but even his ancient magic seemed to struggle against the oppressive atmosphere. The path, barely more than a deer trail, was quickly swallowed by grasping roots and moss-covered stones, making every step a careful calculation. "It's quiet," Elara whispered, her voice feeling too loud in the profound stillness. The familiar chorus of cicadas and nightingales, the rustling of leaves in the breeze, all were absent here. Only the faint, rhythmic thumping of her own heart broke the silence. "Not quiet, Elara. Listen closer." Pep's thought voice resonated in her mind, a little less buoyant than usual. She strained her ears, and slowly, subtly, she began to discern it. A faint, incessant whispering, like 1,000 dry leaves skittering across a stone floor, or distant, unintelligible voices sighing on the wind. It wasn't coming from any particular direction. It seemed to emanate from the very fabric of the wood itself, a low, unsettling hum beneath the silence. It seeped into her thoughts, an insidious melody of doubt and unease. "You are lost. You are alone. This journey is too great for a girl like you." Elara hugged herself, her small frame feeling even smaller amidst the colossal, indifferent trees. Fear, cold and sharp, coiled in her stomach. She remembered the warmth of Starfall Glade, the comforting glow of the stars, and longed for their distant, steady gaze. Here, even the stars felt impossibly far away, their light seemingly unable to penetrate the thick canopy. "Pee. What is that sound?" she asked, her voice barely a breath. "The whispers of the Shadowwood," he communicated, his light dimming slightly as if in explanation. "Ancient echoes, lost memories, forgotten fears. The wood remembers everything that has ever sought refuge, or been lost within its depths, and it tries to hold on to them." As if on cue, a faint shifting shape detached itself from the deeper shadows ahead. It was amorphous, like a wisp of smoke, but with a faint, malevolent shimmer. It seemed to drift towards them, drawing the ambient gloom into itself, growing denser, colder. The whispering intensified, no longer distant, but right beside her ears, weaving insidious suggestions. "Turn back. There is nothing for you here. The serenade is broken, and so are you." "Oh no." Elara stumbled, her breath catching in her throat. The cold radiating from the shadow thing was absolute, stealing the warmth from her skin. She felt a familiar involuntary surge within her, a quiet spark of starlight, but it was quickly smothered by the oppressive darkness, like a match struck in a hurricane. She was not in Starfall Glade anymore. This was a different kind of magic, a different kind of fear. "Gloom Wraith," Pip chirped, his light flaring suddenly, a defiant sapphire. He zipped around the spectral form, trying to push it back, but the wraith merely absorbed his light, growing slightly larger, its shadowy tendrils reaching out. Elara knew, deep in her gut, that this creature fed on fear and dimness, and she was providing it with both. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to recall the feeling of the starlight, the gentle hum that had lived in her heart since birth. She focused on the warmth, on the unwavering belief in the serenade, in the purpose that had brought her here. When she opened her eyes, the gloom wraith was closer, its form more defined, a gaping maw of shadow opening in its center. No do, .e. I won't let you stop me, she thought, a defiant spark igniting within her. It was a silent thought, but it resonated with a power she hadn't known she possessed. She extended a trembling hand, not knowing what she was doing, only knowing she had to fight the invading dread. And then, it happened. Not a flash, not a burst, but a slow, unfolding bloom of light. From the palm of her hand, a soft ethereal luminescence began to unfurl, like a delicate living flower. It wasn't as bright as Pip's concentrated beam, but it was different. It was the color of distant nebulae, of captured starlight, shimmering with a quiet, persistent energy. As it grew, the whispering receded slightly, and the gloom wraith recoiled, hissing, its shadowy form shrinking back from the pure, gentle glow. The light pulsed, expanding into a small protective sphere around Alara. Within its boundary, the air grew fractionally warmer, and the scent of damp decay lessened. The gloom wraith, unable to withstand the alien light, dissolved back into the deeper shadows, its malevolent presence fading, though the low hum of the wood's whispers still lingered at the edges of her perception. Alara gasped, her hand still outstretched, the starlight still blooming from her palm. It felt natural, like breathing. She lowered her hand, and the light slowly, gracefully, retracted, sinking back into her skin, leaving only a faint tingle. "Era, you did it!" Pip exclaimed, his light now a triumphant gold. He zipped to her, hovering before her eyes. "You pushed it back. That was pure starlight, Alara, untamed. Beautiful." A small, tremulous smile touched Alara's lips. I didn't know I could do that," she whispered, her heart still thrumming with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The experience, though terrifying, had left a residue of quiet strength. She had faced the Shadowwood sphere, and she had not broken. With renewed, if still cautious, determination, they pressed deeper. The path grew even more obscure, forcing Alara to rely on Pip's light and her own burgeoning senses. The whispering never truly ceased, but she found she could push it to the periphery of her mind, focusing instead on the faint, rhythmic beat of her own footsteps, the rustle of her cloak, and the comforting presence of Pip. The trees themselves began to change. Their bark, once merely dark, now shimmered with faint, phosphorescent patterns, like ancient glyphs etched into their very being. Roots, thick as python coils, snaked across their path, glowing with a soft ethereal blue. Strange, luminescent fungi, shaped like tiny, delicate bells, clung to the undersides of fallen logs, casting pools of soft green light. The Shadowwood, she realized, was not entirely devoid of beauty, but it was a beauty born of the deep, a magic that thrived in the absence of the sun. They walked for what felt like an eternity, the concept of day and night blurring into a perpetual twilight. Her legs ached, her stomach rumbled, and exhaustion gnawed at the edges of her resolve. They found no clearings, no sheltered nooks, only the unending, twisting labyrinth of trees. Finally, Pip, who had been darting ahead, zipped back to her, his light a frantic, urgent amber. "Alara, look." He gestured with a flickering beam towards a break in the seemingly impenetrable wall of trees. It wasn't a path, but a narrow winding cleft in the earth, almost like a miniature canyon, choked with thick, swirling mists that glowed with an unnerving internal light. "What is it?" she asked, her voice hoarse. To a whispering chasm, Pip communicated, his light pulsing with an odd mixture of apprehension and wonder. "An ancient scar across the heart of the wood. It's said to be a place where the veil between worlds thins, where echoes of time ripple and swirl. It is treacherous, but it is the shortest way through this part of the Shadowwood, and it leads towards the old road to Eriador." Alara peered into the glowing mists. The whispers of the wood seemed to coalesce here, becoming clearer, yet no less intelligible. She heard what sounded like fragments of laughter, snatches of half-forgotten melodies, and faint cries carried on an unseen wind. It was disorienting, like trying to listen to a dozen conversations at once. "The shortest way," she repeated, looking at the sheer drop into the chasm. It seemed to plunge endlessly downwards, the glowing mist obscuring its true depth. "Indeed, but it is guarded, not by a creature, but by the echoes themselves. They seek to trap those who enter, to bind them to the past, or draw them into dreams from which they never wake." A fresh wave of fear washed over Elara, but beneath it, a tiny seed of resolve had begun to sprout. She had faced the gloom wraith. She had found a spark of her own power. She would not turn back. "How do we get through it?" she asked, squaring her shoulders. Pip hovered silently for a moment, his light a thoughtful deep violet. "You must not listen to the whispers, Elara. You must hold on to your own purpose, your own truth. The echoes will try to show you what you desire, what you fear, what you have lost. You must see them for what they are, illusions. And you must find the true path, the one that hums with the song of the stars." He paused, then added, "I can shield us for a time, but the chasm's magic is old and potent. My light will struggle. You must be the anchor, Elara. Your starlight must guide us." Taking a deep breath, Elara nodded. "All right, let's go." With a shared resolve, they descended into the whispering chasm. The glowing mist enveloped them instantly, cool and damp against Elara's skin. The whispers intensified, pressing in from all sides, no longer vague but sharp and clear, though still disembodied. "Mama, Papa," a child's voice cried out, filled with sorrow. You failed them all," a harsh, accusing voice snarled. "Come back to the glade, little one. The stars miss you." This one was soft, tempting, a voice like her grandmother's, promising warmth and safety. Elara squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the insidious chorus. Pip flared, creating a sphere of golden light around them, pushing back the denser tendrils of mist, but the sounds still pierced through, echoing directly in her mind. Her head began to ache, and dizziness threatened to overwhelm her. "Focus, Elara. Your truth. What do you seek?" Pip urged, his voice strained. Elara opened her eyes. The mist swirled around them, taking on faint, shifting shapes. She saw her grandmother's face, etched with worry, then her own reflection, looking small and insignificant. She saw Starfall Glade, bathed in an impossibly bright starlight, shimmering with an alluring false perfection. It was everything she longed for, everything she feared. "No," she thought, pushing the images away. "This isn't real. My truth is the serenade." She closed her eyes again, not in fear, but in concentration. She reached inward, not for a burst of power, but for the quiet, steady hum of the starlight within her, the one that had guided her since the very beginning. She imagined it as a silver thread, unwinding from her heart, pushing through the chaos of the whispers and illusions. When she opened her eyes again, the world was subtly changed. The illusions were still there, flickering at the edges of her vision, but they no longer held the same power. They were like shadows on a wall, interesting but not real. And beneath the cacophony of voices she could hear it, a faint, almost imperceptible melody, a harmony so delicate it was like the breath of a butterfly, yet so profound it resonated deep within her bones. It was the serenade, or at least, an echo of it. "That's it, Elara. Follow the song," Pip exclaimed, his light brightening as if drawing strength from her focus. Guided by the faintest whispers of the serenade, Elara began to walk, placing one foot carefully in front of the other. The path beneath her feet, though still mist-shrouded, seemed to hum with the same subtle energy. She no longer looked at the illusions, but through them, past them, towards the source of that faint, beautiful melody. She ignored the tempting visions, the terrifying accusations, the alluring promises. Her gaze was fixed on the internal light, on the distant, beautiful song. The whispering chasm was long, twisting and turning like a forgotten riverbed. Hours passed, marked only by the increasing ache in her legs and the steady, unwavering focus she maintained. Pip, sensing her resolve, kept their sphere of light steady, a beacon against the encroaching phantoms. Finally, the glowing mist began to thin. The whispers receded, becoming distant murmurs once more. The air grew clearer, and the light above, though still muted by the Shadowwood's canopy, seemed a shade brighter. They emerged from the chasm into a different part of the forest, one that felt ancient and serene, rather than oppressive. The trees here were enormous, their bark a rich, dark emerald, covered in soft glowing moss that pulsed with a gentle rhythmic light. The ground was carpeted in a thick layer of velvety moss, muffling their footsteps. Overhead, instead of the tightly woven canopy, there were occasional breaks, through which Elara could glimpse faint, distant stars, twinkling like scattered diamonds on black velvet. "I made it, Elara," Pip chirped, his light a joyful dancing rainbow. He zipped upwards, spiraling towards a patch of visible sky. "The chasm is behind us. We are in the verdant heart of the Shadowwood." Elara sank to the mossy ground, exhaustion finally catching up with her, but her heart was soaring. She had faced her fears, she had used her magic, and she had passed through a place of great peril. A quiet pride bloomed within her. As she rested, she noticed something peculiar about the moss. It wasn't just glowing, it seemed to be weaving. Delicate threads of light, like silver spider silk, laced through the green, forming intricate, shimmering patterns that slowly shifted and reformed. It was like watching a slow-motion dance of pure light. "These are the lumen weavers," Pip explained, descending to hover beside her. "Ancient spirits of light and growth. They spun the first threads of starlight into the fabric of the world, long before the serenade was broken. They guard the deeper paths, keeping the Shadowwood from consuming itself entirely." As if summoned by his words, a new presence made itself known. From behind the trunk of one of the colossal moss-covered trees, a figure slowly emerged. It was tall and slender, draped in robes of woven moss and shimmering leaves, its form seeming to coalesce from the very light of the forest. Its skin was like bark, smooth and dark, and its eyes, though hidden beneath a cowl of glowing leaves, seemed to hold the ancient wisdom of the wood. It moved with a serene grace, its footsteps making no sound on the moss. It paused before Elara, its head slightly tilted, as if listening to a distant melody only it could hear. A faint earthy scent, like fresh rain on rich soil, emanated from it. "Greetings, little star child," a voice resonated directly in Elara's mind, soft as a rustling leaf, yet clear as a bell. It was not a whisper, nor a spoken word, but a gentle touch of thought. "And you, bright spark Pip, it has been a long age since a starlight bearer walked these paths, and even longer since a fragment of the serenade pulsed with such purpose." Elara, though startled, felt no fear from this being, only a deep sense of peace. You know about the serenade?" she asked, her voice still a little hoarse from the chasm. "We remember," the Lumen Weaver communicated. "We remember the dawn of creation when the stars sang their first perfect song. We remember the breaking, the silence, and the long, slow fading, and we remember the promise of its mending. The being extended a hand, its fingers long and slender, tipped with glowing moss. In its palm, a small, perfect teardrop of light shimmered. It was the same ethereal starlight that Elara had glimpsed within herself. You carry the light, little one, but it is still nascent, still a seedling. The Shadowwood tests those who bear the true light. It seeks to consume the fragile, but strengthen the resolute." "I'm trying," Elara said, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. "I need to find Eridor. I need to find the first fragment." The Lumen Weaver seemed to tilt its head further, its cowl of leaves shimmering. "Eridor is a city of echoes, a heart of sorrow. The fragment rests within the Athel Tower, the highest spire, where the sky meets the earth. But the path is not direct. The Shadowwood has shifted since the serenade was broken. What was once a clear road is now a winding labyrinth." "We just came through the whispering chasm," Pip interjected, trying to explain their journey. "Indeed," the Lumen Weaver acknowledged. "A brave passage for a starlight bearer, but now you face the labyrinth of whispering roots, a place where the very trees move, where paths twist and disappear, and where the Shadowwood's influence is strongest." Elara felt a fresh wave of despair. Another labyrinth? Another test? How do we get through that? The Lumen Weaver slowly turned, its gaze seeming to pierce through the dense trees. The roots respond to ancient songs, to the harmony of creation. The Echo Weaver, the one who shattered the serenade, twisted their purpose, made them a maze of confusion. But the original song still lingers within them, deep beneath the discord. You must find it. You must sing it. You must sing it! Elara's eyes widened. Sing? But I don't know any ancient songs. I don't even know what the serenade sounds like, not fully. You know more than you think, little star child. The Lumen Weaver communicated, its voice growing softer, almost like a lullaby. The serenade lives within you. It is the hum of your purpose, the beat of your starlight heart. Listen not with your ears, but with your soul. The roots will guide you, if you sing their true melody. The Lumen Weaver then raised its hand, and the teardrop of light in its palm began to pulse. It detached itself, floating gently towards Elara. As it neared, it expanded, transforming into a delicate luminous orb, the size of a plum. It hovered before her, radiating warmth and a faint, comforting hum. This is a fragment of the Lumen Weaver's own light, woven from the starlight that nurtured this wood since time immemorial. It will not banish the shadows, for the labyrinth needs its dimness, but it will help you perceive the true path, the one that resonates with the serenade, even when your eyes are deceived. Take it, little one, and may the ancient song guide your steps. Elara reached out, her fingers brushing the luminous orb. It felt cool and smooth, like polished moonlight. As she held it, a faint resonant vibration hummed through her hand, settling deep in her chest, aligning with the starlight already within her. The orb of light didn't feel like a tool. It felt like a living thing, a small, quiet heart pulsing in her hand. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. The Lumen Weaver gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Go now, little star child. Eridor awaits, and the stars remember your courage." With that, the Lumen Weaver slowly dissolved back into the glowing moss, becoming one with the light-weaving patterns, leaving behind only the earthy scent and the memory of its profound presence. Elara stood up, feeling a renewed surge of energy. The orb of light in her hand pulsed gently, a steady, unwavering beacon. Pip, now a cheerful bright green, zipped around her head. The labyrinth of whispering roots. It sounds like a challenge, but with that, and your inner starlight, we can do it, Elara. She nodded, a determined glint in her eyes. The idea of singing to trees, of finding a hidden melody, was strange, but after the gloom wraith and the whispering chasm, nothing seemed impossible. She tightened her grip on the luminous orb, its steady hum a comforting presence. They walked deeper into the verdant heart, the glowing moss beneath their feet giving way to earth once more, though still covered in a thick layer of decomposing leaves. The trees grew even larger here. Their roots, exposed above ground, were massive, gnarled things, like ancient, petrified serpents. They twisted and turned, forming natural archways and tunnels, creating an organic maze. The air grew still again, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something else, something ancient and powerful, like slumbering magic. As they entered the first root tunnel, the whispers began again, different from those in the chasm. These were softer, like murmurs from deep within the earth, resonating through the very roots themselves. They weren't malicious but disorienting, a confusing cacophony of gentle sighs and low groans. The luminous orb in Elara's hand pulsed, and she noticed something. When the orb pulsed, a faint, almost invisible silver thread would appear, winding its way through the tangled roots, sometimes leading straight, sometimes making an unexpected turn. It was the true path, the one resonating with the ancient song the Lumen Weaver had spoken of. "Follow the silver thread, Elara," Pip urged, zipping to hover just above the glowing line. Elara focused, her brow furrowed in concentration. The roots shifted subtly, almost imperceptibly, as they walked. A path that had seemed clear a moment ago would suddenly be blocked by a newly emerged root, or a turning they had seen would vanish, replaced by a solid wall of bark. But the silver thread, visible only through the orb's unique light, remained steadfast, always pointing the way. She began to hum, a soft, tuneless melody at first, just to give herself courage, a counterpoint to the confusing whispers of the roots. It was a simple tune, one she had often hummed to herself while gazing at the stars in Starfall Glade. As she hummed, she focused on the starlight within her, on the purpose of her journey, on the mending of the serenade. And then, a remarkable thing happened. As her simple melody mingled with the starlight, a faint, almost imperceptible harmony seemed to rise from the roots themselves. It was a deep, resonant tone, like the lowest notes of a giant, unseen harp, vibrating through the earth. The silver thread of light pulsed brighter, and the roots seemed to part slightly, making her way just a little easier. Elara's eyes widened. The lumen weaver was right. The roots remembered. The ancient song was still there, buried beneath the echo weaver's distortion. She wasn't singing a specific ancient song, but rather, she was awakening it, with her own starlight and her simple, heartfelt tune. She continued to sing, a quiet, almost inaudible melody, letting her heart guide her. She sang of the stars, of hope, of the journey, of her longing for the serenade to be whole again. And with each note, the roots seemed to respond, easing her passage, guiding her deeper into their labyrinthine heart. The whispers of confusion lessened, replaced by a gentle, steady hum that resonated with her own song. The labyrinth of whispering roots was not a place of open peril, but of subtle disorientation, a test of spirit and inner guidance. It was a place where one could walk in circles for eternity, lost within its shifting pathways. But Elara, guided by the lumen weaver's orb, by Pip's unwavering support, and by the burgeoning starlight within her own heart, found her way. After what felt like another endless journey, the roots began to thin. The canopy above grew lighter, and the air, though still cool and damp, felt less heavy, less ancient. They emerged onto a wide ancient road, cobbled with dark, smooth stones that seemed to glow with a faint internal luminescence. The trees here were still grand, but they stood in orderly rows, like sentinels. And in the distance, piercing the twilight sky, Elara saw it. A city. It was vast, sprawling across a low hill, its spires reaching up like grasping fingers towards the heavens. But it was not a city of bright lights and bustling streets. It was a city of shadows, its buildings dark, almost black, silhouetted against the bruised sky. Yet amidst the darkness, there was a faint, almost imperceptible glow, like moonlight caught on polished obsidian. At its very heart, towering above all the other spires, was a single, impossibly tall tower, slender and elegant, rising straight and true towards the horizon. It seemed to shimmer with an inner light, a faint ethereal blue that seemed to hum with a quiet ancient power. Eridor Sin. The Ethel Tower. The first fragment. A wave of overwhelming emotion washed over Elara. Relief, exhaustion, wonder, and a renewed sense of purpose. She had made it. She had traversed the shadow wood, faced its fears, and found her way through its deepest parts. The city, though still distant, felt like a beacon, drawing her forward. Eridori Pip communicated, his light a shimmering, joyful gold. The city of whispers and echoes. It stands before us, Elara. We are almost there. Elara took a deep, steadying breath. The journey had been harrowing, but it had also changed her. The quiet girl who had left Starfall Glade was still there, but now, within her, there was a nascent strength, a flickering flame of courage that had been forged in the darkness. She still felt the fear, but it was no longer paralyzing. It was a companion, walking alongside her, rather than a master dictating her steps. Eridor lay before them, a monumental silhouette against the deepening night. But before she could reach its gates, she knew, intuitively, that there would be more trials, more lessons, more echoes of the broken serenade awaiting her within its ancient walls. The path to the first fragment was open, but the true journey, the deepest challenge, was yet to begin. The path through the ancient, overgrown gardens leading to Eridor's gates was a winding testament to forgotten glory. Statues of winged figures, their faces softened by ages of wind and rain, watched their approach. Lumina, the little whisper of light, danced ahead, its glow pulsed with anticipation, a vibrant counterpoint to the city's somber silhouette. The gates themselves were not the iron-bound bulwarks Lyra might have expected. Instead, they were two towering arches of living crystal, interlaced with veins of what looked like frozen starlight. They stood slightly ajar, just enough to reveal a sliver of the profound darkness within. No guards stood watch, no sentinels called out. Only a faint, almost imperceptible hum emanated from the crystalline structure, a note held so long it had become silence. As Lyra and Lumina stepped closer, the hum deepened, resonating not in her ears but in her very bones. The air grew thick with a sense of immense age, of stories whispered into stone and forgotten. The crystal gates pulsed once, softly, and a silent shimmering barrier solidified before them. Lumina sipped forward, then bounced back, its light dimming momentarily in confusion. The barrier wasn't physical. It was a wall of sound, or rather, the absences of sound. It absorbed all noise, all vibration, creating a void that felt suffocating. Lyra tried to speak, but no sound escaped her lips. She tried to play her flute, but the air itself seemed to swallow the notes, leaving only a hollow gust of wind. It's a test of resonance. Lumina's voice, a chime in her mind, cut through the silence. The serenade was harmony. To enter you must find a note that resonates with Ifisk's silence, not against it. Lyra closed her eyes, fear a familiar brush against her cheek. This wasn't a monster to outrun, but a puzzle of the soul. She thought of the silence, not as an emptiness, but as a vast, receptive space. What note could fill it without breaking its stillness? Not a loud note, not a triumphant one. A note of acceptance. A note of understanding. She lifted her flute, not to play, but to holding it. She focused, not on making music, but on feeling it. She remembered the stillness of the deep forest, the quiet strength of the ancient stones. She remembered the fear that had once paralyzed her, and the peace that came with facing it. She breathed out, a soft, slow breath, letting her own inner silence merge with the profound quiet of the gate. She imagined a single, pure note, not played but sung by her heart, a note of quiet courage. As she did, the crystal gates shimmered. The silent barrier rippled, then dissolved like mist. The darkness within Eridor seemed to recede, revealing a vast, echoing chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow, its floor paved with polished obsidian. The air was cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and ancient magic. "You understand," Lumina chimed, brighter now. "The serenade isn't just a song, Lyra. It's the harmony of all things, even silence." They stepped into Eridor. The chamber opened into a network of winding paths, leading between colossal, silent spires that pierced the gloom. Gardens, long overgrown, spilled over crumbling terraces, their forgotten flora shimmering with a faint inner light. It was a city of ghosts, beautiful and heartbreaking. "The first fragment," Lumina whispered, its light guiding her down a path that seemed to glow faintly, "awaits in the Hall of Echoes. It is a fragment of the serenade's courage." The Hall of Echoes was not a grand hall, but a spiraling descent into the earth, a tunnel carved from black, gleaming rock. As they descended, Lyra began to hear them, not sounds, but echoes. Whispers of doubt, gasps of fear, the thudding of a heart in panic. Her own heart. Memories of her childhood, of every time she'd felt small, helpless, afraid. The echoes grew louder, swirling around her, a cacophony of her past anxieties. "You're too small. You'll never be brave enough. What if you fail? Stay hidden. How unwind." Lyra clutched her flute, her knuckles white. This was the fear she knew, amplified, given voice. It tried to wrap around her, to drag her back, to make her turn and flee. Lumina pulsed beside her, a steady beacon. "Listen, Lyra," it urged. "Listen, but do not hear them. These are but echoes, shadows of what was, not what is." She stopped, closing her eyes again. She felt the fear, sharp and cold, but she remembered her journey, the moments she had pushed past it. The roaring river, the shadowed woods, the silent gate. Each step had built a tiny bridge over the chasm of her doubt. She lifted her flute. This time, she would play. Not to silence the echoes, but to offer a counter-melody. A melody of defiance. A melody of quiet strength. One, two, one, one is two. She played a simple, clear tune, a melody born of the wind and the whispering leaves, a song of persistent growth. The notes, though small, cut through the swirling cacophony. They didn't fight in the echoes, they simply were. They existed alongside the fear, but they were stronger, more real. Slowly the echoes began to recede, not vanishing, but fading into the background, like distant murmurs. They were still there, but Lyra was no longer overwhelmed. She had found her own sound, her own truth, within their din. At the very bottom of the spiraling path, in a small circular chamber, hung a single luminous tear of light. It pulsed with a soft golden glow, and within it, Lyra could almost hear a faint, resilient note, like a heartbeat. This was the fragment. As she reached out and touched it, the tear dissolved into pure light, flowing into her. It felt like warmth spreading through her chest, a steady, unwavering ember. She felt a profound sense of inner strength, not a boastful courage, but a quiet, enduring resolve. The serenade's courage. "The first note has returned," Lumina chimed, brighter than ever. "Now, Lyra, you can truly filling the brokenness, for you carry a piece of its wholeness." The path to the second fragment opened, not as a physical passage, but as a vision in Lyra's mind, a shimmering, verdant space, filled with crystal flowers and weeping trees. "The Garden of Lost Dreams," Lumina translated. "It holds the fragment of the serenade's compassion." They ascended from the Hall of Echoes, guided by the golden thread of Lyra's newfound courage and Lumina's unwavering light. The Garden of Lost Dreams was indeed breathtaking. Giant, iridescent crystal flowers bloomed in silent profusion, their petals catching and refracting the gloom into a million soft hues. Trees, with branches like spun glass, wept tiny, luminous tears that gathered in pools of liquid light on the ground. But for all its beauty, the garden was heavy with sorrow. As Lyra stepped further in, she began to perceive the source of its melancholy. Within the crystal flowers, tiny, shimmering figures stirred. They were not solid beings, but ethereal forms, barely visible, each curled into itself, radiating an immense, silent grief. They were the lost dreams, the forgotten hopes, the beautiful aspirations that had withered when the serenade broke. One figure, barely larger than Lyra's thumb, lay huddled in the heart of a sapphire-blue crystal lily. It pulsed with a deep, aching sadness that resonated directly with Lyra's own heart. She felt its longing, its fear of never being realized, its quiet despair. The fragment of courage pulsed within her, but it was not enough here. This place demanded something else. "They are echoes of what might have been," Lumina whispered, its light softening. "They cannot be fought, Lyra. They can only be understood." Lyra knelt beside the blue lily. She saw the tiny, shimmering figure, its form flickering as if struggling to hold itself together. She remembered her own dreams, the quiet ones she held close, the ones she sometimes feared would never come true. She understood its pain. She lifted her flute. This wasn't a song of defiance or even of courage. This was a song of empathy. A lullaby for a lost dream. She played a melody that was soft and gentle, full of quiet understanding. A melody that acknowledged the sorrow without trying to erase it. A melody that offered comfort, a promise that even lost dreams hold beauty. As the notes drifted through the crystal garden, the luminous tears on the weeping trees seemed to glow brighter. The tiny, huddled figures in the flowers slowly, tentatively began to stir. The figure in the blue lily uncurled a fraction, its light flickering with a fragile hope. Lyra continued to play, letting her compassion pour into the music. She played for all of them, for every lost whisper of potential, every forgotten joy. She played until the sadness in the garden felt less like a heavy shroud, and more like a gentle rain, washing over her, cleansing rather than drowning. The figure in the blue lily, now almost translucent, rose from its bed. It floated towards Lyra, radiating a profound, if melancholic, peace. As it reached her, it dissolved into a wave of shimmering silvery light that flowed into Lyra's chest. A profound sense of connection blossomed within her. She felt the interconnectedness of all living things, the shared tapestry of joy and sorrow. She understood that true strength wasn't just about facing her own fears, but about feeling the world's pain and offering solace. This was the serenade's compassion. It pulsed alongside the courage, creating a warm, steady glow within her. "Two notes, Lyra," Lumina chimed, its light now a brilliant silver gold. "You weave them into yourself. You are becoming the serenade." The path to the third fragment unfolded, a mental map leading them to the highest spire of Eridor, a tower that seemed to touch the very stars, though the sky above them remained a perpetual, ethereal twilight. "The Tower of Starlight," Lumina confirmed. "It holds the fragment of the serenade's wisdom." The climb was arduous, not physically, but spiritually. The Tower of Starlight was less a structure, and more a conduit to the cosmos. Its interior was a single vast spiraling staircase, carved from what looked like solidified nebulae. As they ascended, The air grew thin, shimmering with ancient knowledge. Lyra felt tiny, a single breath in an endless universe. At the very apex of the tower, in a chamber open to the endless twilight, stood no physical fragment, but a presence. A figure woven from pure starlight, vast and ancient, its form shifting like nebulae, its eyes like twin galaxies. It was the guardian of the serenade, a timeless spirit of pure thought and cosmic memory. "Welcome, weaver of echoes," the guardian's voice resonated, not in sound, but directly within Lyra's mind, a symphony of starlight and eons. "You have gathered courage and compassion, but true harmony requires wisdom. Do you understand why the serenade was broken?" Lyra felt a tremor of awe and fear. This was not a test of strength or empathy, but of understanding. She thought of the whispers, the lost dreams, the vast silence at the gate. She thought of the brokenness she felt within herself, and how she was slowly mending. "It was not broken by a villain, was it?" Lyra ventured, her own voice feeling small against the guardian's cosmic presence. "Not by a force of evil. It was a disharmony, a dissonance, perhaps. Too much of one thing, too little of another." The guardian's form shimmered, like stars shifting in a distant galaxy. "Tell me more, Lyra." "The world. It holds so much," Lyra continued, finding her voice, drawing on the courage and compassion within her. "So much joy, but also so much sorrow. So much hope, but also so much fear. The serenade, it must have held all of these, but perhaps the balance shifted. Perhaps one note became too loud, or one became too soft, or one was simply forgotten. And when that happened, the harmony fractured. It wasn't an act of destruction, but an imbalance. A cosmic sigh, but an imbalance." She thought of the lost dreams, the echoes of fear. Perhaps it broke because the world forgot how to hold its own pain and its own joy in balance. It forgot how to be still and how to sing. It forgot that even silence is a note. The guardian's gaze, those twin galaxies, seemed to soften, to focus on Lyra. Indeed, the serenade was not broken by malice, but by the slow creeping weight of forgotten understanding. The living world, in its striving and its suffering, began to lose its connection to its deepest truths. It forgot that light and shadow are two sides of the same melody. It forgot that strength lies not in suppressing fear, but in walking with it. It forgot that healing comes not from ignoring pain, but from understanding it. The serenade was not a shield against it. "So, to mend it," Lyra said, a new understanding dawning, "it's not about fighting the discord, but about reweaving the threads, about finding the balance again." "Precisely," the guardian resonated. "The third fragment is not a physical light, but the light of understanding that now shines within you. It is the wisdom to know that harmony embraces all, even dissonance, and transforms it." As the guardian spoke, its starlight form seemed to flow into Lyra, not overwhelming her, but expanding her consciousness, filling her with a profound, quiet knowing. She understood the intricate dance of cause and effect, the delicate balance of existence. She saw the world not as a collection of separate parts, but as a single magnificent resonating whole. This was the serenade's wisdom. Courage, compassion, wisdom, the three notes now resonated within her, a beautiful, growing chord. She felt a completeness she had never known, a sense that she was connected to everything, from the smallest stone to the furthest star. "You are ready, Lyra," Lumina chimed, its light now so brilliant it outshone the twilight. "The heart of Eridur, where the serenade was first sung, awaits. Go and reweave the tapestry." The heart of Eridur was not another chamber, but an open space at the very center of the city, a vast, circular plaza paved with shimmering moonstone. At its center stood a single, massive, crystalline pedestal. It pulsed faintly, like a dormant heart. Above it, the perpetual twilight gathered, swirling with faint, formless shadows, the lingering discord, the shattered echoes of the broken serenade. They were not malicious, but chaotic, lost, yearning for form. Lyra stood before the pedestal, her flute in hand. The courage within her steadied her stance. The compassion within her allowed her to feel the immense aching sorrow of the discordant shadows. The wisdom within her guided her understanding of what must be done. "I am not putting the serenade back together, am I?" Lyra whispered, her voice clear and strong. "I am becoming it. I am singing it back into existence." Lumina sipped around her, its light a joyful affirmation. Lyra placed her flute to her lips. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She didn't try to remember an ancient melody. She didn't try to force a song. She simply let the notes within her, courage, compassion, wisdom, rise. She let her journey, her fears, her growth, her understanding, flow into the music. The first note she played was soft, a pure, clear tone that resonated from the courage within her. It was a note of quiet determination, a promise. As it left her flute, it shimmered outwards, touching the restless shadows, giving them a fleeting sense of form. Then came the second note, imbued with compassion. It was a melody of gentle understanding, a soothing balm that acknowledged the pain of the lost echoes. The shadows seemed to coalesce, their agitation lessening, drawn in by the warmth. Finally, the third note, woven with wisdom. It was a complex, beautiful harmony, a note of balance and acceptance, of light and shadow intertwined. This note began to give structure to the formless. Lyra didn't just play, she sang. Her voice, once timid, now soared, blending with the flute, carrying the full weight of her journey. She sang of the wind and the trees, of the river and the stones, of the quiet strength in every living thing. She sang of the fear that could be overcome, the sorrow that could be understood, the truth that embraced all. The serenade was not just a tune, it was a living, breathing symphony of existence. As Lyra played and sang, the crystalline pedestal at the center of the plaza began to glow, its dormant heart awakening. The moonstone paving pulsed with soft light. The shadows above her, once chaotic, began to weave themselves into intricate patterns, like strands of pure energy, responding to her melody. But the discord fought back. Moments of raw, shrieking noise, of jarring visual distortions, tried to overwhelm her senses, to break her concentration. Lyra felt the pressure, the immense weight of the world's imbalance trying to pull her down. Her notes faltered for a moment, her breath hitched. "You can't do it," a silent scream echoed in her mind. "You're just a girl." But the courage within her pulsed, a steady flame. She remembered the paralyzing fear, and how she had learned to walk with it. She looked at Lumina, who shimmered brightly, a tiny unwavering star, reflecting her own light back at her. Lyra took a deeper breath, and pushed through the cacophony. She poured every ounce of her spirit into the music. She wasn't just playing a song, she was being the song. Her flute became an extension of her soul, her voice a channel for the universe's longing for harmony. The serenade swelled. It wasn't a loud, crashing crescendo, but a gentle, all-encompassing wave of sound and light. The individual notes merged, not into a single simplistic tone, but into a rich, complex, perfect harmony that embraced all the subtle nuances of joy and sorrow, of light and dark. The swirling shadows above the pedestal didn't disappear, they transformed. They became a shimmering, ethereal aurora, a vibrant tapestry of cosmic light that danced in perfect rhythm with Lyra's music. The crystalline pedestal pulsed with the full, vibrant beat of the reforged serenade, radiating pure, harmonious energy throughout Eridor. The city itself seemed to sigh in relief. The silent spires hummed with newfound life. The overgrown gardens shimmered with dew and light. Lyra's music filled every corner, every forgotten space, mending the fractures, restoring the ancient balance. When the last, lingering note faded, the world was utterly silent, but it was a silence full of profound peace, a silence that hummed with quiet joy. The serenade was whole. Lyra lowered her flute, her body trembling with exhaustion, but her spirit alight with an indescribable wonder. She felt the serenade not just around her but within her, a permanent, resonant core. She was no longer just Lyra, the girl who was afraid of the dark. She was Lyra, the weaver of harmony, a living conduit of the serenade. Lumina, now a brilliant star-like sphere, orbited her head once, twice, then gently settled on her shoulder. "You did it, Lyra," it chimed, its voice now resonating with the full rich harmony of the serenade itself. "You did not just mend the song, you became the song." The guardian of the serenade, its starlight form now vibrant and clear, appeared before her. "The world will remember this harmony, Lyra. It will ripple outwards slowly, surely, bringing balance where there was discord. You are its living echo, its constant reminder." Lyra felt a sense of completion, of purpose fulfilled. She had found the serenade, and in doing so, she had found herself. She looked around the now luminous heart of Eridor. This ancient city, once a place of silent sorrow, now pulsed with quiet, vibrant life. She knew she couldn't stay here forever. Her journey had been to bring the serenade back to the world, and that meant she had to return to it. With Lumina still perched on her shoulder, a constant comforting presence, Lyra walked out of Eridor. The crystal gates, now fully open, shimmered with welcoming light. The path back through the gardens felt brighter, the air fresher, the very stones seeming to hum a quiet tune. She returned to the familiar forest, but it was subtly changed. The shadows no longer felt menacing, but deep and comforting. The river sang a clearer, more joyful song. The wind whispered, not of forgotten fears, but of ancient wisdom. Lyra returned to her small home, to her bed, to the world she knew. But she was not the same girl. The serenade pulsed within her, a quiet, inner melody. She still felt fear sometimes, but it was a fleeting note, quickly embraced and harmonized by the courage, compassion, and wisdom she now carried. And sometimes, when the world felt a little too loud, or a little too quiet, Lyra would lift her flute. She wouldn't play a grand cosmic symphony. She would play a simple, gentle tune. A lullaby for a world remembering its harmony. A melody to remind herself, and anyone who listened, that even the smallest note, played with a true heart, could weave wonders. The serenade was not just a legendary song. It was the harmony within all things, within all people. And Lyra, the girl who had once been afraid of the dark, had found its most beautiful note, not in a hidden fragment, but in the depths of her own courageous, compassionate, and wise heart. And as she drifted to sleep, the soft, sweet melody of the serenade filled her dreams, a quiet promise of harmony, always and forever.